There are lots of things to think about when moving abroad. There can be an incredible amount of trepidation. Let's take some of that away for you and share some food for thought. For those of you that are new to our channel, thank you so much for subscribing. I'm Jill.
I'm Yannick.
And we're Hug a Journey. We're a family of 5 and we're sharing our journey about living abroad, and we're currently based in Portugal. Welcome. One of the biggest things is mindset. Now, I've got a made-up word that encapsulates one of the things you absolutely shouldn't do, and it's called comparisonitis. And that's the notion where you can come here and compare how everything works here with your home country. So that's not the way it's cooked at home. That's not the way the health service works at home. My doctor normally does it this way. The schools normally do it that way. Oh, it's so expensive here. So that just shouldn't be a thing. You need to come to Portugal with an open mind, with a curious mind, a willingness to learn and embrace a new culture, a different way of doing things. It's such a rich experience. We've learned so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've changed as a result, as individuals and as a couple. It's really broadened our horizons and that of our children. So we absolutely love what this beautiful country has done for us. So you really need to come here, come and enjoy yourselves. You know, forget all of those things that might not work exactly the same way. You know, don't come here and criticize things. That's an absolute no-no. Of course, there are things that are going to be frustrating. I mean, we've all had those moments. But equally, if you get to know the culture, learn the language as best you can, speak to people, be culturally sensitive. As I say, be curious and willing to learn, and embrace what this country has to offer. It has a lot to offer. It's brilliant. As I say, is it perfect? No. Is any country perfect? No. But you have to think, what's your purpose of being here? And 9 times out of 10, it's to try something different.
And I think it's important to just mention that you need to have the right mindset for this, because it's not like a holiday.
Yeah.
You can go to countries like Portugal we are in now, and you might have an idea of how things work, but you don't really know how things work until you actually live here, because then you realize that, okay, I have neighbors that are, in this case, Portuguese, and they have a different work schedule than what I'm normally used to. They have different priorities. They have a 2-hour lunch break. They have like a different culture, a different perception of the world. They might not be, they might be more monocultural, for example. They might have their own quirks, for example, that can be different than a big city of London, for example. So I think you just have to stay hungry and stay humble, and just absorb what that culture is, and learn from that experience.
Yes, and be culturally sensitive. Learn about what you're coming into in advance. So join as many Facebook groups as possible. And if you've got ideas of the areas you want to live, most times they have their own Facebook group. So the village that we're living in has its own Facebook group, so you can really absorb what the locals speak about. And even if you don't yet know Portuguese, there is Google Translate. Facebook has Auto Translate, so you can really follow along with the conversations, ask questions, see what locals talk about. What are the locals, what are their frustrations? What's going on in the local area? There are lots of ways that you can understand your area, get a bit of an insight into the culture. You can even sign up to language lessons with a native Portuguese person, someone who's born here, and get to know the culture. That's what we did. We asked a lot of questions. I had, before I got here, I had a tutor from Preply. This is not sponsored, by the way. And I just asked her, lovely lady called Sophia, I asked her, tell me about the cultural norms, tell me about the customs, how do you celebrate certain events, what traditions do you have, and all of those things. So I was well equipped to really hit the ground running when we arrived.
Yeah, and all countries has its quirks.
Yeah.
So it's the quicker you learn the quirks, the quicker it stops frustrating you.
Exactly.
And all countries has it, even the countries we are born in and raised in. There's a reason why we didn't live there currently. So there's always that hunger of just exploring and just throw yourself wholehearted in it. You can't have a foot in both camps. You need to really
just dive in.
Yes.
And enjoy it.
And I think another point to what you're saying is that it's not just the expat Facebook groups, it's also the local Facebook groups in Portuguese.
Yes.
That's important to join to get a real feel of what's going on in the area. The other thing you have to think about as a family is the journey of the kids to moving abroad. And this is different depending on your kids' needs, how they're wired, what they've been exposed to before, if they've lived in the same country their entire life.
Yeah.
And the age of the kids as well.
Absolutely.
It can be a bit of a culture shock for them, especially if they've only lived in like one place and they haven't made new friends before, because it is a new country, it is a new language. There will be a language barrier for kids as well, and there can also be a culture barrier that you might not be as direct or more direct or like whatever culture you move into. So when you're moving abroad with kids, you really need to make sure that they are ready for the journey and that they want to join the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
getting their buy-in.
It's a lot for them to get used to, and it can feel very unsafe for them if they're not up for adventure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things you can do to prepare them. Learning, having some language lessons up front is one way you can do it. Again, back to my other point, educating them about the culture they're about to be part of.
Yeah.
And letting them know about the differences between what they currently are used to and what will change. For example, if they're going into a local Portuguese school, then there are things like the school hours, for example, that might be different. So for us, coming from the UK, the school hours were much shorter. Coming here, it's a longer day. And then when you add extracurricular activities on top, sometimes they're not getting out of school until 6 o'clock. Then, after that, they might want to spend more time with their friends. They've got to eat, have time to relax. So
homework.
Homework. So it can be an incredibly long day for them. And it's just things like that, helping them to prepare for that. The other thing you could do is position a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think basically us as parents, we should try to create an anchor for them.
Yeah.
So they have something to attach themselves to when they're going into the new country.
Yeah.
And be aware of they might be a bit more like focused on a relationship to objects or things. Like they're trying to find their comforts within the move.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to create some allowances for that as parents.
Absolutely. And it is very difficult. We want to acknowledge it's very hard, especially for those people who are coming from further afield, perhaps the United States, coming here. It's a big thing, moving away from all your friends, your family, your work, everything you've known, and coming here. It's such a huge thing. And, the stress of that cannot be underestimated. And this is why we want to share our experiences with you. And if this can help you in any way, then our job is well done.
Yeah. When you are jumping into Portugal and you are just like super focused on that, I need to find a really good school for my kids. That's all good and well, and I understand your intention of that, but it's more than just that. You probably have to find the area first, because the area means a great deal, that you can fulfill all the different things that you want from an area, that they're able to build your community, that you have enough to do in the weekends with your kids, and
you have support if you need it,
and that you are the right distance from the airport if that matters to you. Like those different things that matters to you, you need to map those out first.
Yeah.
Make sure the area can fulfill that.
Yeah.
Because Portugal is a relatively big country and many small roads, and it can be quite a bit of a traveling time in reality. So bear that in mind, and then after that, then you can move on and find the perfect school within that area. Because there's a bunch of schools in Portugal. Many of them are great, many private Portuguese schools as well. So don't be limited just by finding the school, but find the area first, be critical, analyze, and then from that point, find the school from there.
And that's been one of the sticking points for us, because we absolutely have fallen in love with our children's school. They have two but it was perhaps in an area where there were just less stock of properties. So we've really struggled with finding a home that was suitable for us.
Yeah.
And so we want to share that with you, just so you can bear that in mind when you're looking for your schools and areas.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're picking a school, if you're like choosing a Portuguese school, Portuguese public or Portuguese private school, then you have to just bear in mind that their school year might be slightly different than what you're used to. They might not have the half-term breaks as we used to in the UK or in Scandinavia. So you need to just bear that in mind and make sure that it suits you. So just ask for the holidays up front when you are asking questions about the school, and make sure that you are happy with that, because it can be quite limiting that you can't travel during a good bit of the year with your kids if you want to maintain family connections, for example. So it's just something good to bear in mind.
And if your children are competing in sports, gymnastics, running, basketball, anything like that, make sure that you check out where they can join clubs here in Portugal before you settle into an area. Make sure that that's available within the areas, because you don't want them to miss out, and obviously it will be a passion for them. So just make sure that that's something that you think about as well, because that might not be available as broadly as it is in the country that you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
If your children have special educational needs or any medical needs that need to be taken care of, please consider these carefully, because the support and the medication might not be what you're used to in your home countries. So do lots and lots of research about this, particularly when it comes to medicines that might not be available here, particularly when it comes to medicines that might not be available here. Super important that you have a backup for those too. If they have special educational needs, there is a special Facebook group for that. So you'll find that there is always resources, but do the work up front. It will definitely save your stress.
Yeah, and what you need to think about on the medical side is no medical care across countries is one-to-one. So you can't compare them. They will look at things differently. They are educated differently, and they have access to different medication.
Yeah.
So I think the best advice I would give on that is, when you come here, before you settle in and you buy a house and you sign up to schools, maybe just go to like a private hospital like COF or something, get a 1 hour consultation, a consultation with a specialist, and pay the 100 or 200 euros or whatever it costs, and just challenge them on the things that you know that you may need, just so you can hear upfront how they will deal with it and how that fits into the system, so you don't get any surprises as you go along.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have heard of cases where people have been on medicines for many years for a particular condition, and they've come here, and unfortunately that medication is not prescribed here in Portugal. So they then have to change to a new medication, and that can come with some ugly side effects, and can in some cases be life-threatening. So it's so critically important that if you have any health conditions whatsoever, that becomes your priority, making sure that you can get an English-speaking doctor if you need one, that the specialists have the level of knowledge that you will need to support you in your condition. If you need any complementary therapies that are associated with your condition, that you can have access to those too, in the language of your choice. So there are many things to consider here. There are many great hospitals here, public and private. Make sure you have your medical insurance sorted out, really important. But more than that, make sure that you can get absolutely everything you need here. If you're committing to moving here and moving your entire life here, retiring here, or staying here for the rest of your life, then that definitely should be at the top of your list.
Absolutely. And then let's just touch 2 seconds on taxes. I know it's boring, so don't yawn. So with the NHR program that's very famous in Portugal, there's a bunch of different things that you just need to be quickly aware of. Before you go in, just make sure that you are even entitled to have it, because it is only for certain professions. So there is a chance that you can't get it at all. The other thing is, you cannot have lived in Portugal the last 5 years. But more importantly is, even when you get here and you relocate your whole family here and things are working great, that it is only lasting for 10 years. So have a plan for what you're going to do beyond that 10 years. Because Portugal is a very high tax country when you no longer have that NHR exemption. So you definitely need to have a plan get a financial advisor or a tax advisor. Just think things through and plan long term, because otherwise it can quickly impact your life.
Well, it will definitely hurt your pockets if you don't have a plan in place, particularly if you're coming here and you've got your passive income set up and everything's you've got everything planned for the 10-year period. But definitely this is the sort of thing where long-term planning will definitely serve you well.
Yeah.
Something else that you might want to think about is if you're used to having nannies, having cleaners, which I know many people coming here are. They're busy and they have families, etc. Just bear in mind that it's not perhaps as well established here as it may be back home. Yes, there are nanny agencies. Yes, there are cleaning companies. The cleaning companies tend to specialise in cleaning for businesses, and some of the nanny agencies, from feedback I hear, are a bit touch and go. So you can have a bit of a mixed experience with them. Same with the cleaners. There's a whole different philosophy when it comes to cleaning here. Sometimes it can take much longer, and it just operates differently. So definitely bear that in mind, especially if you're busy working parents and you're used to having services, because it might impact whereabouts you live in the country. You may not, in that case, if you need the support, want to live out in the remote areas of Portugal, because then you have no chance.
Yeah, but even, for example, such as things like Uber Eats or like having food delivered, you might just be like 5 minutes in the wrong direction and you're out of the zone of delivery.
Yeah.
And there's no chance on earth you can get
to us, by the way.
Where we live in a city where it does cover it, and then because of the postcode we have, it's just like 1 digit wrong, and then you can't have it delivered. Even they go more miles away from the restaurant in the other direction, but they don't cover us. So those kind of things you just have to bear in mind that can hit you.
Yeah. Let me just touch upon online shopping. So it is established here in Portugal, but not for every supermarket.
Yeah.
So you have it for Continente, for example, but other supermarkets not. So definitely bear that in mind when it comes to planning where you'll live. Make sure that if you do need to rely on those types of services, that you are living in an area that covers that.
Yeah, and I think, for example, with Continental, they probably have the most built out online shopping for groceries. I don't think they yet have a national coverage. So that's just another thing to bear in mind if you fall in love in the landscape of Portugal and go in the bit more remote bits. Another thing to mention is that Portugal is in many ways most likely very different from what you come from. So you need to just be financially prepared for it. There is some setup costs. You most likely have to buy a car. And immediately you might not be approved for finance, so you need to just be ready for that. There might be different deposits for either house or renting a house, so you just need to have a good amount of savings before coming into Portugal, just so you are prepared for it or have a sustainable income that you can rely on for a good while. Because also the employment market isn't super well paid in Portugal, so you can't directly just rely on that. We've done other videos on that, but just have a good financial plan on your income source and the money you arrive with when you come into Portugal. One
critical thing when leaving all your loved ones behind is finding your connections and tribe here in Portugal. We can't stress how important this fact is. So when you're thinking about where you're going to put your pin in the map of Portugal, make sure that in those areas there are people who you feel that you can connect with. The Portuguese people here are wonderful, but they work incredibly hard, very long hours. And we've met people and enjoyed the company of Portuguese people who just don't have a lot of time. So they're working long hours, and once they finish work, they've got caring responsibilities, maybe for their parents, maybe for their children. And then the weekends, they've got lots and lots and lots of things to do. So they absolutely don't have enough time. There's just not enough hours in the day to spend as much time with their friends as they would like. So it's something to bear in mind if you don't want that loneliness and isolation to set in, either for yourselves or for your children. So a key point is, as we said before, get on the Facebook groups, try and test out the areas before you settle down in a particular area, and make sure that there are people who you can have coffee with or connect with. And even if you are the type of person who just wants to be left alone, who wants to be in the middle of the forest somewhere, in the middle of the country with not many people around, we can promise you there will become a point where you just want to say hello to someone. So it's definitely something which is worth thinking about, and it's actually one of the anchoring points that will help you settle and feel like you belong here.
Yeah, it is definitely the sense of belonging. And the other point to touch up upon is how the kids might be missing family.
Yes.
Because they will have their friends that might have family here, and they'll be seeing their grandparents, be picking them up on a Friday and spending the weekend with them. Yeah. And when you are moving abroad with your family, your kids just doesn't have that opportunity. So you need to find other ways of fulfilling that need. So they have that family connection, and so they have the values that you want your kids to have, and that's something you need to be thinking about before jumping ahead, I would say.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, watch the rest of the videos because they're great, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.